Welcome back to the Qt Developer. So today I'm going to put together the QThread. Now there are a few ways in which we can do this, but I like to inherit from the QThread. So I need a thread, and I created a file, and I'm going to call it mirco.cpp. And so I go ahead and add this to the trader profile or the JTrader profile, and then I'm going to add this header file as well. mirco.h, and I go ahead and save, and in theory it should show up, and here they are. So here is my Mirco file. Go ahead and close this. So here's my Mirco file. So I'm going to create a singleton. So I need to inherit from QThread, call my class my thread Mirco. Now, there's two ways in which we can do this. One is to inherit from QThread, and the other is to create an object, create the thread, place it on the object, and run it. I don't really like doing it that way. And I look at this kind of like artwork. It's my picture. It's my painting. So it's kind of the way I like doing it. I find this a little bit easier to do. So now let me take a look. So what I need to do now is I need to add the Q object keyword. So Q underscore object. This is more the macro. So when I add the macro, then it'll allow me to do all of the signals and slots and implement everything that I need on that regard within Qt. But this is the keyword that you need in order to make that happen. The next thing I need to do is I'm going to make a private variable, and that private variable is going to be my instance. Now I'll create a static, and I'll call it Mirco because that's the name of my my singleton, and then s underscore instance. And this will basically be my variable to the singleton. I then would like to make a hidden constructor, and I will then make a note for myself, letting my future self know that what this actually is. Because believe it or not, once you do this, I kind of forget. So I like to make some notes. And so that's all I need right now here. Now, in my CPP, well, actually I didn't get to my CPP yet. I think I need to do a few more things. I'm trying to type and talk, lose concentration. So now I actually need to make the constructor. So here's my Mirco, and this is the copy constructor, and I basically want to disable it. I'll then override the operator for Mirco, the Mirco copy constructor, and by doing this, by setting it to delete, it basically disables it. Now the next thing I need to do is I actually need to make it a way. I need to make a way to get the instance of it. So I'm going to now say Mirco, and I'll create the pointer of get. So get will be the function that I'll use. And in here, I want to check to see if the instance is actually being used. And if it's not being used, I want to set the instance equal to a new Mirco. Then I just want to return, and that should be enough for my singleton. Next, I need a way to actually implement it. So inside my, that was my definition. Now my implementation, I now need to say, all right, Mirco with a pointer to Mirco, and I want to give it the instance. Okay, so now that is all squared away. Now go ahead and build, and everything builds. Okay, so now the next dilemma is going to be, how do I get my thread to communicate with all of these things? So if I look at the E wrapper, this is essentially what I need to communicate with. So all these functions in here, well, those are just the enums, but I need to be able to communicate with all these things. So I need to be able to communicate through E wrapper. I need to be able to communicate with the E-reader, also the E-reader signal, the execution, if I were to place orders. So you see, I need to be able to access these and communicate with these. So I need a bridge. So I need a bridge that will go from my QThread directly to all of these classes. So I need to create a new file. Let's call the new file jcore. All right, so now that I created the file, let's go ahead and add them. So a header jcore.h, and then I'll do the same thing for the CPP. There we go. And they should show up. So here's jcore, and these are the files that I need to include. And I included a few of these vector QMap because I know I'm going to need those. I'm going to inherit from eWrapper, and then this right here, the eWrapper prototypes.h. This is a very important file because all of these are all the methods that I need to implement. So I need to implement all of these methods inside of my jQuery. So this right here, this eWrapper virtual impl, this is just a pure virtual function. But this is important, this eWrapper prototypes. And this is important to know because when you have updates, you're going to have to come take a look at this eWrapper prototype and then implement either the changes within some of the methods. So if there's a new parameter or a less parameter, one's been added or removed, then you'll have to implement it. Or if there's an entirely new method, you'll also have to implement it. So coming back here, things that I'm going to have to do in my eWrapper. So the first thing is I'm going to want to do some forward declarations. So the first forward declaration is going to be my eClient socket. The second declaration is going to be for my main window because I may pass that back and forth. Maybe it's something that I want to pass back and forth with that main window in which I just pass the data in. Now there's a number of ways in which I could do it. I could create a signal slot system, which is possible, but it becomes challenging to debug. So for simplistic reasons, for right now, I'll just pass the main window. Now the next thing I need to do is I actually need to implement my states. So I want to go ahead and implement all my enumeration states. Now I have a few of these predefined, so I'm just going to copy paste these. So here's a bunch of them, predefined. And you can make any ones you want. Ones that I find important are the idle, my tick operations, connected, market data types, etc. All your orders have been canceled, and you can make these anything you want. I'm choosing to stick with some of the ones that are similar within Interactive Broker. So the next thing I like to do is, and again, you don't have to do this, but I like doing it, just in case I want any private variables. I'm then going to make my own public, and I like to just create a basic constructor and a basic destructor. Again, you don't have to do this, but I just like doing it because it's a habit. Now the next thing, I need to create the ability to connect, set my connection options, check and see if it's connected, as well as disconnected. So again, to save a little bit of time, I do have a few of these predefined. Here we go. This is where I can go over them. So my set connection options is going to be a string. When I actually connect, I need to pass it a host and a client ID. And I've set the default ID equal to 0. And then I want a Boolean, check and make sure it is connected. And then I also want to be able to disconnect. Now these are my methods. So right now, if I right click and I choose, actually, let's see, do it here. Choose refactor. There we go. I can add that definition. And see, here it is. There we go. And Alt Enter also does it too. Here's my is connected, disconnect, connect, and let me just make sure they're in the right order. So I've got set, connect, is connect, disconnect, set, connect, is connect, disconnect. Great. So now I'll go ahead and implement this. Let's take a look at the set connection. So inside of this set connection, okay, so before I actually connect and implement any of these, I'm going to need to actually specify the prototypes and get all the data from that prototype. Now this part's a little tricky. So what I need to do is first I'm going to make another public IB events. And again, I don't have to put this here, the second public, but I like to do it. It just makes sense to me later. The next thing I need to do is I actually need to import the eWrapper prototypes. So you remember this file with all this stuff in it? Well, I need to import it. And I then need to actually implement all of these methods. But before I do, let's go ahead and create our private variables. So here's the declaration, and I'll make this my socket declaration. And inside of here, I need the eReader signal, and I need the client socket. Now the eReader signal basically gives us all the data coming to and from. I then want to create my state and my time. So here's my state, and here's my sleep dead time. I then want to create an actual Q hash. The reason why I want to create a Q hash is because I like to create a Q hash of the state. You see, it'll be able to tell me what the current state is. And I'll have a current symbol. Now, the next thing I want to do is I'll set up some orders. These are all things that I like to just kind of keep in here. I'll use them later. And I need a pointer to the e-reader. So I will at some point need an order ID. The e-reader I'll need to check the authentication and the exchange. And then I'll just create, now I need something for the errors. And then I need something to actually store all of the data. So now I can go and take a look at set connection. So if I come into the set connection, I can now access those prototypes. So if I say m_, pclient set connection options. You see, I can just pass it connection options. So all this is really doing is just feeding it down into MP client and calling this within eClient. And then I'll do the same thing with connect. So now with connect, I want to create bres, and that's going to be equal m_pclient econnect, and I'm going to pass it the host, then the port, and then the client ID. And there's one more that I can pass, which you see there's extra authentication. I now need to set the reader, and the reader is going to equal new reader, and I'm going to pass the pclient, and I need to pass a reference to the signal. I then want to start the reader. I then want to return bres. So this should be my connection. For now, when I check to see if it's connected, I'm simply going to return the pclient is connected. And for the disconnect, I'm going to disconnect and pass it true. And there we go. So I've now implemented those methods. And the next thing I need to do would be go ahead and begin to implement all of these. Give yourself a little more space. So I'll go ahead and implement those prototypes. And that will be in the next video. So thank you for watching. I hope setting up this QThread and the initial J-core is helpful. So stay tuned and get ready for the next coding session. So happy coding. Thank you for watching.